You know, it's kind of a funny observation about modern life.
Yeah.
Usually when we talk about technology, we complain about how our devices, constantly demand our attention.
Right, the endless notifications.
Exactly. But lately, it feels like we've actually started treating ourselves exactly like the smartphones in our pockets. We're constantly searching for the latest software update for our own lives.
Oh, absolutely. The relentless optimization.
Yes, we biohack our morning routines, we meticulously track our sleep cycles, we try to optimize every single minute of the waking day. It's almost as if we've convinced ourselves that, if we just install enough habit tracking apps and drink enough green juice, we will finally eliminate all our human glitches.
It's an incredibly seductive illusion, that idea of the perfectible machine.
Yeah.
We just love the idea that human beings can simply be debugged. And really, that is exactly our mission for this deep dive today.
It's just there's a lot to unpack there.
There really is. We've pulled together a fascinating stack of material for this, ranging from mid-century psychoanalysis by Alfred Adler to modern medical frameworks from the University of California, San Francisco, and even some recent MRI studies on overworked brains.
Oh, wow. Actual MRI studies.
Yeah, the physical evidence is pretty wild.
Mhm.
We're going to use all of this to explore the hidden psychological costs of this hyper-productivity culture. We need to look at what actually happens when productivity stops being, just a handy tool we use to get things done and mutates into a performance-based identity.
Where your fundamental worth as a human being is completely tied to your daily output.
Exactly.
Because, waking up at 5 a.m. to meditate, run 10 kilometers, and read a dense nonfiction book before you even log on for work, well, that sounds less like a healthy morning routine and more like you're in training for the productivity Olympics.
Right. And that's because hustle culture has completely reframed how we view human energy. It's this pervasive ethos where busyness is equated with moral virtue. Like, if you are grinding from dawn to dusk, society views you as successful and good.
And if you aren't.
Well, that's the dangerous flip side. Resting, or simply taking a pause, is deeply stigmatized. It's viewed as a weakness, a moral failure, or simply just slacking off.
And the social media amplifier just makes this so much worse, doesn't it?
Huh?
It's incredibly performative now.
Oh, totally.
You log on to platforms like LinkedIn or TikTok, and it's just a barrage of curated success stories. Someone posts, I finished 5 books this week, or here's how I monetized my weekend.
Which turns personal growth into an invisible competition.
Exactly. An invisible, exhausting competition. You're no longer just trying to read a book because you enjoy it. You're trying to read it faster than the person on your feed so you don't fall behind the pack.
The human desire for growth and learning is entirely natural, of course. But the psychological literature points out a massive distinction here. In a hyper-productivity culture, this growth isn't built on a foundation of genuine curiosity.
What is it built on then?
It's built on a foundation of endless inadequacy. It's what we call a treadmill effect. Every new achievement or life hack brings a very short-lived satisfaction, and then, almost immediately, a new sense of deficiency emerges.
So you run faster, but the treadmill just speeds up to match your pace.
Exactly.
Okay, I hear the psychological argument, but let me push back a little. Isn't the drive for efficiency what built the modern world? Wanting to get better at things and not waste time seems inherently positive.
Sure, can be.
So there has to be a line between healthy ambition and this toxic trap we're talking about.
Uh.
When exactly does self-improvement become self-sabotage?
Well, the distinction lies entirely in the underlying motivation. Like, why are you striving in the first place? Alfred Adler's theory of the inferiority complex perfectly explains this behavior.
Okay, lay it on me.
So Adler observed that every child naturally feels inferior, simply because they are surrounded by adults who are literally stronger, smarter, and more capable.
Right, that makes sense. You're just a kid in an adult's world.
Exactly. And to a healthy degree, this feeling is what actually motivates us to learn how to tie our shoes or read a book. But Adler found that when we don't develop internal confidence as we grow, we carry that raw inferiority right into adulthood.
Oh, man. So we start using external achievements purely to compensate for this deep-seated feeling of inadequacy.
Precisely. We seek external validation like, finishing a massive to-do list because we lack internal validation.
So underneath all the sleek suits and the optimized calendar invites, we're basically just adults running around trying to prove we aren't the helpless kids we used to be, just using our productivity as a shield against feeling small.
That is the absolute core of the issue. And psychoanalyst Karen Horney actually expanded on this dynamic with what she called the tyranny of the shoulds.
The tyranny of the shoulds. That sounds terrifyingly accurate.
It is. We internalize the relentless demands of a highly competitive environment, and we create this fictional, impossible, ideal self. This is the version of you who uh, never gets tired, never makes a mistake, and is always perfectly efficient.
Oh, the shoulds. Every single listener knows that voice. I should read more. I should be answering emails faster. I should be making more money by this age. It's like having a drill sergeant living inside your head that never, ever sleeps.
And that internal drill sergeant is brutal. Horney explains that when you constantly hold up this unrealistic, ideal self as the standard, it inevitably abuses your real self.
The actual you, living in the real world with all your, human limitations.
Exactly. And because your real self can never live up to the fantasy of the ideal self, you end up creating a deeply unhappy third version of your identity, which she called the despised self.
Wait, the despised self. We literally start to hate our own humanity.
We do. You literally start to despise your own need for sleep, your moments of distraction, simply because they aren't optimized.
Which brings us to a staggering piece of data from the research. 61% of Americans report feeling guilty when taking time off work.
61%.
Just think about that for a second.
What?
Why do you feel guilty taking a nap when you are genuinely physically exhausted? Your body is screaming for rest, your eyes are heavy, and yet your brain is actively punishing you for listening to your own biology.
Well, that guilt is the emotional friction of failing to meet toxic expectations. The psychologist Carl Rogers called these conditions of worth.
Conditions of worth.
Yeah. So many of us are taught from childhood that we are only worthy of love, respect, or acceptance conditionally. Only if we meet certain requirements, like getting straight A's or being the star athlete.
Oh, I see. So as adults swimming in hustle culture, we've internalized a new condition of worth, which is constant productivity.
Exactly. If you take a nap, you aren't producing. And if you aren't producing, your subconscious tells you that you are fundamentally unworthy of respect.
Okay, but if we are constantly operating from a place of inadequacy and guilt, constantly fighting our own biology, there has to be a physical toll.
Right.
You can't run an engine like that without causing damage. What is the actual biological reality of living in this hypervigilant state?
The clinical data reveals a pretty grim picture. Beyond the widespread mental exhaustion and chronic stress, we see a profound rise in depersonalization.
Depersonalization.
Yeah.
What does that feel like in practice?
It's this terrifying psychological state where you become entirely detached from your own life. Imagine sitting at your desk, typing an email, but feeling like you are floating a few feet away, watching someone else type it from behind a thick pane of glass.
Wow.
Yeah, you're going through the motions, executing tasks, but you are completely disconnected from the experience of living.
It's like running a computer with 100 tabs open at the same time. The battery is draining twice as fast, the internal cooling fan is just screaming, and eventually the whole system just completely freezes while trying to process a basic keystroke. The machine hasn't just slowed down, the underlying architecture is failing.
And clinical data proves that architectural failure is more than just a metaphor here. An MRI-based study looked at the brains of individuals who worked more than 52 hours per week.
Okay, what do they find?
The scans showed structural differences in 17 distinct brain regions compared to people who worked standard hours.
Wait, structural differences, like the actual physical shape of the brain changed just from overworking?
Yes. Sustained overwork physically alters your brain architecture. When you are constantly stressed about productivity, your body floods the brain with cortisol, and over time, that chronic cortisol exposure actually shrinks the prefrontal cortex.
Which is the part of the brain used for complex planning, right?
Planning, problem solving, emotional regulation, all of it.
Yeah.
And simultaneously, it enlarges the amygdala, which is the brain's fear and threat detection center.
That is insane. So the harder you push yourself to be a perfect, rational decision-making machine, the more you physically wire your brain to be reactive and fearful. You're literally re-engineering your brain to react to a new email notification in your inbox like it's a physical predator in the room.
Which leads directly to a state of cognitive depletion. When you force your brain to stay in a rigid, hyper-focused mode constantly, you overtax your cognitive resources. You kill your mental flexibility.
And your creativity just dies, I imagine.
Exactly. You lose the ability to solve problems creatively because the very hardware required for creative thought, that prefrontal cortex, is compromised by the stress hormones.
You know, the bitter irony of all this optimization is practically a modern comedy routine. Like, let's look at sleep trackers.
Oh, this is the perfect example.
You buy this sleek, expensive sleep tracking ring or watch because you want to optimize your rest, right? You get into bed, and instead of just closing your eyes and falling asleep naturally, You lie there, staring at the ceiling, filled with anxiety about getting a low sleep score the next morning.
Right, your multi-$100 optimization tool is literally causing the insomnia it was designed to cure.
Exactly. Or consider the cultural obsession with the side hustle. We are encouraged to monetize absolutely everything we do for pleasure.
Yeah, you can't just have a hobby anymore.
You can't just enjoy baking sourdough bread or knitting a sweater on a Sunday afternoon.
Hmm.
The second you show a hint of talent, someone in your life immediately says, oh, you should open an Etsy shop.
It's so true.
We take the very activities that are supposed to relieve our stress, the things that bring us simple joy, and we turn them into a second job, complete with customer service complaints, supply chain issues, and profit margins.
We really do.
Or my personal favorite absurd behavior, spending 3 solid hours watching YouTube videos on how to be more productive. Instead of just doing the 20-minute task you've been avoiding all week, we've managed to turn the pursuit of productivity into an elaborate form of procrastination.
It's funny, but these behaviors really highlight a fundamental flaw in our thinking. We are treating ourselves like software, but humanity is not software.
Right?
Think about it. When you update an app on your phone, you patch a bug, the code becomes cleaner and the system gets stronger. But every forced update we impose on our human psyche, every new rigid routine or optimization hack, often creates a new vulnerability.
We're breaking ourselves trying to fix ourselves.
Exactly. By treating ourselves like machines to be debugged, we are rapidly losing our tolerance for our own natural human vulnerabilities.
We aren't allowing ourselves the grace to just be human. And modern technology, ironically, seems to be accelerating this trap rather than saving us from it.
Oh, without a doubt. The boundary between work and rest has been completely obliterated by our tools. Before smartphones, there used to be a physical geographic transition. You left the office building, you commuted, and you were at home.
Now the office is just in your pocket.
Right. It's vibrating with Slack messages during dinner or sending you project updates while you're trying to watch a movie with your family.
But wait, the entire marketing pitch for AI and productivity software is that it will save us time. Logically, if I can use an AI tool to summarize a 50-page document in 10 seconds or write all my emails in a fraction of the time, this generation should have more free time than any humans in history. We should all be working 2-hour days.
Well, that is the efficiency paradox. It's heavily related to what economists call the Jevons paradox.
What's that?
It's the idea that making a resource more efficient to use actually increases the consumption of that resource. So the more efficient we become at completing tasks, the more work we simply create to fill the newly opened void.
So technology isn't actually saving us time.
No, it is just expanding our capacity to fill every available second with output. If an AI writes your emails in 5 seconds, the corporate expectation isn't that you get to log off and go to the park. The expectation is now that you can send 100 times more emails in the same 8-hour shift.
Oh man, it feels like we've become so terrified of wasting time that even our downtime has to be heavily scheduled and optimized to feel valid.
Yeah, we micromanage our own relaxation.
Exactly. It looks something like, okay, I have exactly 45 minutes for optimized leisure reading, followed by 15 minutes of structured mindfulness, and then a 10-minute cold plunge. It totally drains the spontaneity, the joy, and the genuine fulfillment out of life.
And micromanaging relaxation completely defeats its biological purpose. To escape this, we really need a crucial shift in perspective, specifically redefining what rest actually is.
Redefining rest.
Yeah, researchers at the University of California, San Francisco have developed a vital framework regarding deep rest, and it requires us to understand the profound biological difference between ordinary rest and deep rest.
Okay, ordinary rest being like the default modern break, doom scrolling through social media while a television show plays in the background.
Exactly that, or casually watching TV while half thinking about work. That kind of rest keeps your visual cortex and processing centers highly active. It doesn't reliably engage the body's deeper restorative processes.
So what is deep rest?
Deep rest, on the other hand, activities like meditation, yoga, or simply taking a contemplative walk without your phone actually triggers cellular level repair. It physically signals safety to the nervous system, which turns off the chronic stress response and stops that flood of cortisol we talked about earlier.
The pushback here is obvious, though. If you are a busy professional on a major project deadline, or a parent juggling 3 kids, you don't have the luxury of disappearing to a yoga retreat or taking a contemplative 2-hour walk in the middle of the afternoon. How do you realistically apply this?
The good news is you don't need a retreat. The biology requires frequency, not just duration. Physiologists have identified the basic rest activity cycle, often called the BRIC.
The BRACE, what is that?
It's a natural, roughly 90-minute ultradian rhythm built right into the human body. Our brains can sustain high-level alertness and focus for about 90 minutes. After that, they naturally demand a 20-minute drop in arousal to recover.
So the 90-20 rule. What does that 20-minute recovery actually look like in practice if we want to signal safety to the brain?
Well, if you are on a deadline, simply staring at a blank wall or looking out a window for 5 to 10 minutes can work wonders.
Just staring out a window.
Seriously, you are literally giving your optic nerve a break from the intense close-up screen focus. When you let your vision go panoramic and unfocused, it physically signals safety to your parasympathetic nervous system and triggers that mid-cycle repair.
Wow.
So when you feel that inevitable brain fog hit you mid-morning, that isn't a flaw in your work ethic. That is your biology demanding a pause. Pushing through that dip with a triple espresso and a heavy dose of guilt does more harm than good. It depletes your prefrontal cortex further and ruins your cognitive flexibility for the rest of the day.
So when my brain is screaming at me to just stare out the window at a tree for 10 minutes, it's not being lazy. It is literally trying to repair my neurochemistry so I don't burn out.
Exactly. And we have to look at this from a broader existential perspective, too, beyond just the biology. The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard wrote extensively about despair, and he argued that true despair comes from abandoning your true self to chase an impossible ideal.
Which circles right back to Horny's tyranny of the shoulds. We are letting the ideal self bully the real self out of existence.
Spot on. When we sacrifice our actual human needs like rest, deep connection, and unstructured spontaneity just to become an optimized productivity machine, we fall into that despair. We abandon the messy reality of who we are for the sterile fantasy of who we think we should be.
That is so powerful.
To bring it back to Carl Rogers and his work in psychology, he constantly reminded his patients that the good life is a process, not a state of being. You are not a project to be completed. There is no finalized, fully optimized endpoint you are going to reach where you suddenly never feel tired or overwhelmed again.
I think for anyone listening who feels constantly behind, that is such a profound relief to hear. You are not a machine. Human experience is meaningful precisely because of its imperfections, its fragilities, and its unpredictability. Not in spite of them.
Very well said.
Because if we actually were perfectly optimized software, life would be incredibly boring. We'd just be executing code until the battery died.
Right. The ultimate takeaway from all this research is that the goal of life is not to become the most optimized human on the planet. Productivity is a valuable tool, but it is just a tool, meaning relationships, creativity, and presence matter just as much, if not more.
Absolutely.
Rest is not the absence of productivity, it is the biological and psychological foundation of it. True growth doesn't come from forcing yourself to install more upgrades, it comes from making peace with your current version.
We spend so much of our limited energy on this earth trying to prove our worth through what we produce. We are constantly chasing the next achievement, the next promotion, the next checked box on an endless to-do list, hoping it will finally make us feel like we are enough.
And we always need more.
Always. But I want to leave you with one last thing to ponder today. What if the most truly productive thing you do today is absolutely nothing at all? What if, just for a moment, you stopped measuring your worth by your output, put the smartphone down, and simply allowed yourself to exist?